This podcast is proud to be part of the TalkSport Fan Network. TalkSport. Powered by fans.
Danilo's free. He goes to Gibbs wide. Edge of the box. Foley. Yes! Great goal! What a hit from Arena! Gibbs wide. They've only gone and done it again. Forest back in the lead. Rewarded Gibbs White. Oh, and he scores! And the City ground goes ballistic.
Hello and welcome to this edition of Red Side of the Trent as we look ahead to Friday's fixture under the Knights against Leicester City. It's our first fixture of them in about a good year or so. And I'm delighted to be joined by Chris from Leicester Till I Die TV. So Chris, how are you doing first and foremost? Trust you're well?
Yeah, very well. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me on. Hope you are well as well.
All good here, thank you. No, thank you very much for joining us. It's been an interesting start so far. And obviously there's a few more dynamics to this game than normal with Steve Cooper, which we'll come on to very shortly. But just off the outset, I mean, on the face of things, you're newly promoted sides. You're currently 14th in the league. You're 6 points clear of the drop. You're in the fourth round of the League Cup. It all looks pretty good on paper. So why is there so much discontent among the fan base?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think that the discontent is aimed at Steve Cooper, and I'm sure we'll talk about him sort of and the links more in a bit. Steve Cooper was one of the three managers that I actually wanted at the start of the season. I mean, I'm one of these, I don't care who he's managed, Coventry, Derby, Forest, whatever. I thought he was a guy that could keep us in the Premier League. And I think the problem was when you looked at the teams who were playing at the start, we had Fulham in there, we had Everton in there, we had Palace in there, teams that, even though we were newly promoted, teams you would look on paper at getting something off.
Yeah.
And I think the fact that we haven't, and yes, all right, we've won our last two, but the fact that we hadn't won before that, it was the way we hadn't won before that was very frustrating. Tottenham, we were lucky in the first game. I mean, if they'd got the shooting boots on, well, if they ever got the shooting boots on, they'd win something, wouldn't they? But, that first half, they let us get away with so much. And in the second half, it was like Tottenham who. And, all the way, and that's been the story of the season, all the way through to Southampton at the weekend. That first half, I mean, I write for the BBC and I was getting my pen ready, thinking, right, this week's blog was going to be about sacking Cooper. And then, at full time, it was a blog about what a tactical genius Steve Cooper is. But that's football. We're all fickle, do you know what I mean? But
No,
that's
you're not wrong.
That's the frustration. And when you look at, okay, I'm not saying we'd be any better off with Enzo, because of his style of play, which is like Southampton's, playing out from the back, and look where they are doing that. And what he's getting away with at Chelsea, the standard of players he's got at Chelsea are a lot better than we have at Leicester, as good as we think our players are. I don't think we'd have had a better start. And I think Steve Cooper's style will eventually come through and be better. Problem is that, and it's not his fault, but when he came in, he had nobody there that said, like, I might try sort of, this guy on the wing. Now, when Ranieri left, we had the assistant manager there, Craig Shakespeare, rest in peace, Craig, who, could turn around to Claudio and go, don't be stupid, he can't play there. But every single member of the coaching team was Enzo's, and every single member went to Chelsea with Enzo. So he's having to kind of learn on the job, if you like.
Yeah.
And last season, we had Fatawu on the right, we had Mavididi on the left, and we were tearing teams apart. And suddenly this year, one of them, they've not really, they've never started a game together. And we're like, what's going on? but obviously it's a different league, and Cooper's trying things out. Which, had Enzo stayed, he would have had all this from last season. So that's the discontent. Is look, away from home to be 2-0 down at half time and come back and win 3-2. That's Premier League winning form, you know what I mean? But to be 2-0 down at half time is, relegation form. And that's the thing with Steve Cooper at the moment. Not necessarily his fault, but we just want 90 minutes of football that is good, not just 45.
No, I understand that. I get as well, like one of the big bone of contention I've seen among your fan base, and you touched upon it there, is it Fatawu, who I don't think seems to be in and out of team. And I know a lot of your fans have been very vocal about that, suggesting that he's your best player, expressing the bewilderment why he's not playing, etc., etc. Do you think it's just because there hasn't been that sort of basis before? He's sort of come into a sort of team with his own ideas and sort of thing like that, doesn't really know the squad that he's got yet, or do you think it's something else?
I think it is a case of him coming in and, like I say, learning on the job. He's bought experience. He said he wanted experience, so he's brought Jordan Ayew in, who has scored 2 goals this season, including the winner in the 98th minute against Southampton. But he plays him on the wing, which isn't really, you're thinking why is he playing this guy on the wing when we've got Fatawu? But Fatawu has never played in the Premier League before. He's only had 1 season in English football. He kind of maybe starting to believe his own publicity a little bit, and maybe needs just to be reined in. But if he's going to perform like that when he comes on, because he absolutely tore Southampton apart. If he does not start against you on Friday night, there will be riots in Leicester. But the worry is that if he starts, and we've seen this, we used to have this with Damari Gray, stick him on at 60 minutes, 70 minutes, brilliant. But start him from the beginning and nothing. So it will be interesting. Look, we all as football fans, everything's got to be instant 5 minutes ago. But he's got to be given time. Look, all we wanted this season, and I'm sure it was the same when you came up a couple of seasons ago, you want to finish 17th.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
You want 3 teams to be worse than you. Are there 3 teams that are worse than us this season so far? Yes.
Yeah, that's insane. Yeah.
So
6-point gaps, there's quite a lot already. We've only played 8 games.
Yes. I mean, I think Palace will probably turn it around, but you've got
with the players they've got,
you've got Southampton, Wolves, and possibly Ipswich. But all right, we didn't get the points deduction, but had we, which was more than likely going to be 6 points, we think that's what it would probably. We'd still be, more in a better position than Palace. So we can't win. And I finish every single game, and I'm frustrated if we've not won or whatever. But overall, I think Steve Cooper. I think he will keep us up this season.
That was my prediction. To be fair, I actually went as far as saying on our podcast when we did our preview, and we had a few things, a few select hot takes, if you like. And mine was that even with a point deduction, Cooper will keep Leicester up because he's a man that can make the impossible possible, and we've seen that at Forest. Yes. And I just felt that I can totally see why he took that job at Leicester, because he wanted a chance to prove himself to Premier League manager, which of course he very deservedly should be seen as. But I suppose, obviously, looking at his reception, because it does seem that if we were to win on Friday, then that could be or could make a very, very awkward situation for him, put it that way. But why do you think it is? Do you think it is because of the whole Forest links? I mean, that would be a bit nonsensical, given Martin O'Neill's one of your most successful ever managers, came from Forest. Wes Morgan, one of the most successful ever captains, came from Forest. Do you think that there is something to do with that, or do you think it's the case because you had this manager in Enzo, this swashbuckling style of player, you blew away everyone before you in the Championship, and now obviously, like you said, new league, got to be much tighter, much more defensive, and you're not really playing that expansive anymore. Do you think maybe that's got something to do with it as well, or what do you think the main reasons are?
Probably a combination of a little bit of everything. The big one is the Forest connection. You know, Martin O'Neill. It wasn't so soon, if you know what I mean. You
Yeah.
know, Wes Morgan, he had to earn that, really. In fairness, you know, and obviously he's back with you now, and we wish him all the best. You know, but I mean, look, if we beat you on Friday, I think Steve Cooper would probably be carried shoulder high through the centre of Leicester. You know, it is going to be a big moment, you know, big game, if you like. If we lose it and taking off the blue tinted spectacles, it's just another. If you know, it's another game at the end of the day. You know, it amazes me that Forest fans will say, we're not bothered about Leicester, it's Derby or whatever. And yet you see the social media posts, and for a fan base that's not bothered about us, you seem to be a little bit, onto us. But look, I loved it when Forest came up. And I have to say, what I liked about Forest coming up was you didn't have an awful lot of that we're back where we belong sort of attitude, kind of Leeds did a little bit. But we hadn't had a proper derby in that league. And we'd been in that league for 10 seasons. We hadn't had a proper derby. Villa was the nearest thing we got to a derby, really. And when you come to think, we've had Coventry, Derby, Forest, and those are the four big East Midland, only East Midland clubs. So to us, it is a big game, but in the great scheme of things, if we lose to you and stay up, I'm not bothered.
That's it. That's what it's all about, isn't it? Like, as long as there's, like you said earlier, as long as there's 3 teams beneath you and that dotted line, who cares? Like, but it's definitely an interesting one. I mean, I do wonder. Like, I saw his press conference, his comments today, and he was very sort of coy about it all, sort of saying that I'm living in the moment, sort of thing. It's what I found it very strange, because when we played Swansea, when obviously we took him from Swansea, and he was very quite abrupt in his press conference. He was like, I've moved on, everyone else has moved on, it is what it is, sort of thing. But it doesn't seem to be that this time round. He seems to be a bit more vague, which is quite interesting. But it's just one
possibly because of the rivalry. I mean, I'm sure Forest Swansea isn't a huge match normally. We know, look, from last season, 2 seasons ago, the trouble in Forest Town Centre. We know there is that spark, and if he says the wrong things, and whatever Steve Cooper is, he is very good with the press. He thinks about what he says. Just doesn't come out and make stupid comments, like some of our previous managers have done. So I think he was just playing it down, because I don't think he wants to fan the flames. I'm sure behind the scenes he's saying to the players, for God's sake, please just go out and stuff them for me. But he's not going to say that on camera, And look, what he did at Forest was amazing. The way he turned it round, he kept you up. It was virtually his team that stayed up last season as well, if my memory serves me. He doesn't hate Forest. He's got no, he's not a Forest lad or anything like that. And I think it's nice that he has that respect for his past teams.
Definitely, it's like somewhat refreshing when I came in it. But I suppose you touched upon it earlier, the whole the points deduction threat, and it's probably fair to say that it may have had some impact. January or summer window. Sorry, I know. Obviously, I've seen quite a few fans suggest that players were a bit apprehensive of coming because they didn't want to join a team that might lose 6 points, for example, which is perfectly understandable. So that's another sort of string to keep his bow, really. But you did manage to bring in, obviously, Ayew, Jeff mentioned Ayew, Oliver Skip, and Buenanotte, unknown from Brighton, who's a very exciting player and seems to be very much in the thick of things from the get-go, really, at the King Power. But how do you think those 3 players have been so far? And what's your general thoughts on the summer window?
I think as well, taking the last part first about the general thing with the summer window, is I don't necessarily think that a lot of players didn't necessarily want to come to us.
Mm.
I think it did with managers. I think there were some managers that didn't want to come to us because of the possible deduction. And that's what I have to say. Fair play to Steve Cooper. Even with that hanging over, he still came and took the job on. And fair play to him for that. We couldn't go mad in the summer window. Look, we got away with the 6 points, and teams will probably, or any points deduction at this point, and a lot of teams will probably hate us for it. But a lot of teams, 19, there's 19 other teams in the league that would have done exactly the same if they'd been in our position. Danny Murphy said on Talk Sport, in fact, I was only watching it earlier, and he said, if the window's open, you're going to go through it. Doesn't care, and any other team would have done. And all right, yes, we've got, we had some very good lawyers. We had the best lawyer in effect.
Nick DeMarco, another shared accomplice of ours.
Yeah, exactly. Well, exactly. I mean, forgetting, as you've been there, and that may grind a little bit, the fact that you got the points deduction.
Honestly, it doesn't. I think, to be honest, I actually commended Leicester for finding a loophole to exploit it for what it was. I thought that, obviously, we'll be here for a long, long time to get into PSR-related issues. But I think, I actually didn't. I had more issue with the Premier League, to be honest, of having such a stupid law book in place that suggests that if you leave the league with a few days left of your PSR window, you can void something entirely. I mean, how incompetent is that? But no, I had no issue with DeMarco picking it out for you. If anything, it just shows how stupid they are. But sorry.
Exactly. And I know Simon Jordan was saying that, it's ruining football and all this. Well, PSR is. It's not worth the paper it's written on, obviously. But yes, Steve Cooper again, when he was looking at who we could buy, and Oliver Skipp's still got to earn his stripes with Leicester. Still, a lot of the fans out there are still sort of like, a bit like that about him. But for me, he's formed an excellent partnership with Harry Winks. I mean, they used to play together at Spurs anyway. The problem is you've got I would start those two as the two in front of the back four. Other fans are saying, well, we're at home, we should be more attacking. Why have two defensive midfielders? But fans are fans. Ayew, I wasn't sure about. I spoke to a Crystal Palace fan, and he said, you know what he'll do, though? He'll come on and he'll get you a free kick at the right time just to stop the flow of the game. He'll hold things up. He'll do that. First game he came on, literally his first touch of the ball, he went down, got us a free kick, and he has scored 2 absolutely amazing goals. So I'm having to eat a lot of humble pie over Jordan Ayew. Against Tranmere in the cup, and obviously 98 minutes. What a strike, against Southampton. Edouard, I've only got one word to say about him, and that's why. I just don't know why we bought him. We looked at him before he went to Palace when he was at not Palace. Edouard was Palace, wasn't it?
Yes, ultimately. Yeah.
And we looked at that and went, we don't like him at Celtic. We didn't want him when we got Daka instead. Why we've got him now, we'll see. He's not had a chance to show us yet because he's had a bit part, 10 minutes there, 10 minutes there. So it's difficult to judge and be fair. Buenete, I'd have his babies. What a player this guy is. What did it say about Brighton if that they can afford to let this guy go and still, well, they're up in the top 6, aren't they, Brighton? They're 5th. And yet they say they've got this guy who played 50-odd times for them last season. He is just absolutely, he's on a different level. Absolutely on a different level. What he does, he's again scored a couple of goals. He scored with his first touch after he signed for us. We've only got him on loan, unfortunately, and he has signed a long-term deal with Brighton. So that he's going to go back to Brighton. Now, whether Brighton have just done that so that if they do sell him, they can get some money for him.
Technical
Will be
value,
interesting. Again, early days, 8 games in, but my God, like I say, thank you, Brighton. I mean, he is unbelievable. He's got to start again. He's got to start as our attacking midfielder. And I think there's not many teams in this division that he won't cause problems for.
No, I'd agree with that. I think one thing I like about him as well, and I think it's a sort of a Cooper trait, if you like, because Gibbs White's very similar in that is that when Onosei gets stuck in, he's not just like a flashy luxury player who he gets the ball and sprays a pass. I think he won 7 tackles at the weekend against Southampton. It's like a league high. So he's a very hard-working, industrious player. And I think, like you said, it's baffling Brighton have sort of like got this like riches of talent, basically.
He'd only got back from Argentina something like 3 days before as well.
Yeah.
I mean, like you said, I don't think he would have necessarily done well under Enzo. I don't think he was an Enzo type player, but Cooper is more attacking. And he's a fan favourite already.
Yeah, and it's a very, very good player there. Another player who I think has caught my eye this season, especially, although it's a little bit worrying when it's your goalkeeper being picked out. But Hermansen looks very good in goal, I'd say. I think he's obviously has a lot to do, but he seems to be doing very well. He's only 24 as well, I think, something like that.
Yes.
So, what have you made of his performances so far this season?
He has been excellent. We've always had a good history of keepers at Leicester. Obviously, Gordon Brandt, Peter Shilton. Obviously, we both had Kasper Schmeichel. We've always had some good keepers, and obviously he's Danish, so he's an understudy to Kasper in the national team. It was an Enzo buy, and we thought we might lose him in the summer to Chelsea. We lost, obviously, Kieran Dewsbury Hall. We thought we might lose Mads Hermansen as well, but thankfully didn't come in for him. He very much likes, well, when Enzo bought him, he's a goalkeeper that likes to play out from the back.
Yeah,
that's why he was bought by Enzo. Gave us heart attacks sometimes with his passing out from the back, a la Southampton, if you like. And he's having to sort of learn a different way this season because Cooper is not as reliant on that, shall we say, as the likes of Russell Martin and Enzo. And you've got to have the right players to do that anyway. But yes, my God, he has kept us in some games. Bournemouth, he kept us, that got us the 3 points. He pulled off a worldy save against Southampton. Unfortunately, it was against our own defender, Van Faes. But it was a great save nonetheless. If only Van Faes could do that at the other end corner. But he will be, unfortunately, I want to keep him as long as we can. Whether we can or not will be another matter. But yeah, he's worth points every season. Is Mads Hermansen did great for. I mean, last season sometimes he was up on the edge of the centre circle. That's how high we played last season. It was ridiculous. Good to see, but it was that fear of somebody just going to go over the top.
Absolutely.
So, but yeah, I mean, again, a great signing, and because we were when we lost Kasper, we had a couple of we've got loads of goalkeepers, to be honest with you. Danny Ward was being castigated for the relegation season. Iverson had come in, but then we'd had Stolarczyk, who had done really well, but he got injured, and we just thought that Iverson would start, but no, he went out and bought Mads, and love him to bits again.
Signing, no, I was going to say he played amazingly well at Arsenal as well. I mean, I know obviously you can see the 4 goals that game, so it's a bit weird saying that the goalkeeper played great, but he really did. He was almost a one-man ball at times. Yeah,
could have been a lot more, to be honest with you. We probably should have got something from that game, but
we've got to get back to 2-2 as well. That's incredible.
Yeah,
really, yeah. Looking ahead to Friday, though, obviously, so you sort of touched upon who you might like to see start. Obviously, Skip and Winks in particular, you said you'd like to see. See, Fatawu seems to be the one that everyone wants to see. But what sort of team do you think Cooper will play on Friday? Because it could be it's an interesting game. Cooper's teams traditionally don't have much of the ball in the Premier League, and nor the Forest. So it could be a very, very interesting game when the ball just sort of stays in the middle of the park and nothing happens.
Yes,
But,
yeah.
But what are your thoughts ahead of Friday, and what sort of team do you think Cooper will pick?
He will obviously. Mads will be in goal. It'll be a back four. He'll almost certainly start with Christensen as the left back, and he'll have James Justin on the right. Unfortunately, I don't rate James Justin on the right. Both Southampton's goals came down that side. He's a great player. Before he got injured, he just sort of played his first England game.
I remember,
Amazing player, but although he's right-footed, to me he plays better on the left. And I love Christensen, but everybody again is screaming, "We want Ricardo in."
Pereira,
Cooper, Cooper's had this sort of like, I want to get experience, and that's why he's bought Ayew, and that's why he's bought Skip, and that's why he's bought Edouard. But you've got a player like Ricardo, who's one of our most experienced players that's played in the Premier League. He's a Portuguese national, and he hasn't played any minutes whatsoever. No, not a single minute of Premier League football this season. It's like, what is going on? And that's the other thing with Cooper that is winding fans up a little bit, because if a manager leaves out a player who isn't a fan favourite, then there's no problem.
Of course, yeah.
But Ricardo is a fan favourite. He's brilliant on that right side, whether it's on the right wing or right back. Last season, he played an amazing... He played as a midfielder, but his role was to fall back into that right back position when we were defending. But he's just not getting a look in. But I honestly say, with knowing Cooper and what he's done this season, it will be Christensen left, it will be Justin right. Centre-back pairing, at the moment, it just picks itself. Wout Faes and Akoli. Okay. Now, we bought Akoli. He was a new signing. We had Vestergaard last season, who was... I don't know what Enzo gave. He must have been 3 Weetabix every morning, because he was bought by Rodgers, and then Rodgers never played him. And that guy has got he could play it from the penalty spot to the opposite penalty spot and just land it. His passing is amazing. Unfortunately, he's got the turning circle of the Titanic.
He's a very slow centre half, isn't he? Yeah.
Yeah. But he got injured, and Akoli came in. We bought Akoli, a young player who's got the pace that Vestergaard hasn't as well. Awful pre-season, Akoli. The first thing he did was score an own goal. Thought, oh, here we go. But, my God, what a pairing those two have made. Big question as to whether he'll start Winks or not, because he dropped Winks for Bournemouth, and we won. And we kind of knew then that he wouldn't play him the next game, because you don't change a winning team. We struggled against Southampton. He brought Winks on actually at half-time, which was early for Steve Cooper.
That is early.
Yeah, and he changed the game. Him and Fatawu coming on changed the game. And as much as I'd like to see Skip start, it will be Ndidi.
Yeah.
Because Skip... Again, Ndidi is splitting the fan base. I've not been overly impressed with him, but the other half, I think he's having a brilliant season. So toss the coin, whichever side it lands. But I think he'll start with Ndidi, almost certainly. And whether it will be Skip or Winks, hopefully it will be Winks. I have a feeling that Buenetti will start, hopefully. I'm pretty much sure he will do. Now, he started with El Canous, who's very much like Buenetti Mark II.
Yeah.
But he needs... he needs to get experience. So I think a season of him coming in and, for a bit here and a bit there will do him good. And if we don't keep Buenetti, I think he'll move up into that great position. But I think it'll be Buenete. Now here's where it's a case of fuck it and see, because I don't know. As much as I want Fatawu, I don't think he'll start. I think he'll go with Ayew on the wing and possibly Mavididi on the other side.
Yeah.
And Jamie Vardy up front.
Vardy up top. Yeah.
Fatawu, I mean, like we say, he turned that game on its head. As much as Winks did, so did Fatawu. He had a hand in all 3 goals. But it's almost like, I say, a bit like the Damari Gray situation. He started to believe his own publicity last season, I think. If there was 2 players to be taken on, he'd want to take on 4.
Of course. Yeah.
If there was a pass, he'd want to do the shot. So I think it's a case of Steve Cooper just saying, look, you've got to learn this, and learn how we're going to do it. And at the moment, look, if he doesn't start him and he brings him on and he has that sort of effect, then, great. And of course, Jamie Vardy, just give him a couple of Red Bulls on the Friday morning, and he'll be up and at you.
Looking forward to that. That should be an interesting battle. And just before we wrap up, can I get a score prediction from you?
I've got my head in my heart.
You can give 2. That's all right.
Yeah. Look, you've had a great start to the season. You're 8th. I'm not going to lie. I had you down for relegation this term.
Most people did, to be fair. So you're not alone in that.
And I think, in fairness, I don't like Nuno as a manager, but he's doing all right for you. Let's say that, isn't he? So fair play to you. At the start of the season, this is a game I would have looked at and said, it's one. When you look at the start of the season, we could win that. That might be a draw.
Oh yeah, everyone does that.
Yeah. And I looked at this. This is one that, even if it wasn't the Forest thing, this is one that I think we could win. That said, if you give me a draw now, I'd probably take it. Your away form has been better than your home form, I think.
Yes, really weird.
Yeah. I mean, on home form, we're about the same. So I'd take a draw now, but that's my head speaking. My heart is going, if we can play anything like we played against Southampton in the second half, I am going, 3-1 Leicester. I've got to go with my team, haven't I?
3 goals. No, fair enough.
Chris Wood will score. Always does.
No, that's fair enough. I think I've sort of got a bit of a head and a heart thing as well. I personally think it'll be a draw. I think it'll be a 0-0 or 1-0. I don't think there'll be a lot in it. I think it'll be quite tight. Heart says I think we can win, but that's just football, isn't it? Every football fan's going to be saying those things. But
and that's fair enough, And although I did put you to go down, I don't want you to go down because I like that rivalry. That's what football's all about. Football should all be about what happens on the pitch, not PSR and points deductions and all that. And it's great having those derbies. We say we didn't have them for years, so it's great to have them back again.
No, of course, yeah, and I definitely agree on the PSR point. That lots of choice words about that which you cannot say on this. But thank you so much for your time, Chris. Much appreciated, and all the moving forwards. As for regular listeners, we will have our preview after Leicester game on Saturday morning. We'll dissect things as normal. But until then, have a good rest of your week. Safe travels to those going to the game, and come on, you Reds.